Kinder Scout in the Peak District. A local mountain rescue team have summoned air ambulance medics to help treat a critically injured mountain biker.
He was bleeding to death. Breath to death.
They're miles from the nearest hospital, and they're scared they're going to lose him.
There were lots of signs all pointing towards him having lost a significant amount of blood.
"27-year-old Shyamenda Purslow is a lecturer at Manchester University. He's also studying for a PhD. When he's not working, he loves to go out on his mountain bike.
I started enjoying cycling more maybe 2 years ago, actually. Went to the National Cycling Center and did some training on mountain bikes, and it was just the best day, especially when you're going downhill and you've got to really have nerves of steel because your heart's pumping like mad, and yet you have to be really relaxed and focused to be able to move just the right way.
Today, Shyamenda is in the Peak District with his best friend Greg, who's also a keen mountain biker.
We'd been planning it for quite some time, I suppose months, and the heavens finally aligned and we went out. You know, we saw a few things, saw some deer. Yeah, it was just really cool. Saw a lot of people out because the weather was really nice.
The two cyclists are out in the Kinder Scout region of the Peak District. It's a popular area for mountain bikers as its tough terrain makes it quite challenging. It's also the highest region of the national park.
Bit of an uphill struggle in some places, which wasn't so nice. I feel like the sheep are laughing at you, just pushing your bikes up.
Now at the top, over 2,000 feet above sea level, it's time for Shyamenda and Greg to enjoy the downhill ride.
We were going down fairly fast, but it was just straight, clear paths through a few farms, sheep running out the way. So it was pretty enjoyable.
But suddenly, that all changes.
Then I just, all of a sudden, go over pretty quickly. I just end up on the side, and I can spot Greg sort of going in the distance. So I'm just thinking, all right, I need to get up and get on the bike and carry on moving. As I was getting up, you know, felt a little bit tight by my, say, lower abdomen, if you will. But I just thought I'm probably a bit winded. And so I'm walking towards the bike, and then at that point, I hear Greg sort of shouting, running back up. And I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. Why is he running back up? He should be cycling back up. It didn't make sense. And he's shouting, you need to get down. I'm there thinking, get down for what?
But Greg can see his friend has a serious wound on his thigh, caused by him catching his leg on the handlebars.
Sort of at that point, my right hand started to feel quite warm, which was a bit strange. So I then end up looking down and I just see a bit of red. So then I realize, okay, I'm bleeding. All right, so I lay down, or I go to lay down. And I was there going, oh, I best just take this bag off. He's like, no, you best not move at all.
Greg tells him to lie down on the ground and immediately puts pressure on the area where he thinks the blood is coming from. He has to get help quickly, but his mobile phone has no signal.
He's also shouting for other people who might be walking by, shouting for help.
Thankfully, Greg's cries are heard by a passing walker, who takes over trying to stem the blood.
I don't know if he said his name or not. I just remember it was heavier than Greg, because they swapped in terms of applying pressure, and I was like, whew, I know he's here.
Eventually, Greg gets a signal on his phone and can call through to the emergency services. The first crew to respond are the Kinder Mountain Rescue Team.
We just finished the training for the day and we were loading up the vehicles. And the call came through, so we quite literally threw everything in the Land Rovers.
By good fortune, the team are only 2 miles away. So within a matter of minutes, they're fast approaching the scene. One of them begins to record the rescue.
We've got a call to say that there's an injured mountain biker up on Alset Moor. So we've just all driven over to the bottom. We're now tramping up to the top.
They're shocked by what greets them.
There was a lot of blood. He was bleeding to death, without a doubt.
The team cover Shyamenda with a tent to try and keep him warm.
There's a member of the public holding pressure on his right upper leg. And there's obviously quite a bit of blood on site. I took over from the member of the public, which had done a sterling job stopping the bleeding, rather.
With Shyamenda having lost so much blood in such a short space of time, the team need to find out exactly what's causing it, and fast. Mick Cousins is one of the mountain rescue volunteers, but is also a trained ambulance technician. He starts to investigate.
I got a free hand and managed to cut up his trouser leg to have a look at the wound. I found that he had about a 25mm puncture wound in about 3/4 of the way up his right leg. And then I thought, well, this blood isn't coming from there. Carried on cutting up, and he had a sort of a swiping laceration, 100 to 150mm long, deeper in the middle. That's where the blood was coming from.
Shyamenda has ruptured his femoral artery going over the handlebars of his bike. With this type of potentially fatal injury, he could lose all the blood from his body within 5 minutes.
The main artery for your leg is the femoral artery, so it's the one that takes all the blood from about your waist down to just above your knee where it starts splitting. So it's the blood supply for all of your leg is basically that one.
There are now more than 20 people on the mountain, including police, ambulance and mountain rescue. They all know how critical the situation is. The only one who doesn't is Shyamenda.
I was just there thinking, this isn't probably that serious. I'm used to getting cuts and scrapes anyway, so I just thought, I'm just bleeding. I don't understand why he's panicking so much.
But he has now lost so much blood, he's drifting in and out of consciousness.
I could hear what everyone was saying. I think I was communicating as best I can. Whether I was coming across that way, I don't know. They probably mentioned that it's serious.
It is. Shyamenda is slipping away, and they need to get him off the mountain.
There was a road ambulance down by the road, but we were looking at the fastest time to actually get him to hospital because time was of the essence. So really we needed an air ambulance.
Later, the helicopter arrives, but to reach it means carrying a dangerously deteriorating Shyamenda over rough terrain, which could prove fatal.
What we didn't want to do was to disturb any clot that was already there.
Back to Kinder Scout in the Peak District, where Shyamenda Purslow is being kept alive inside this orange mountain rescue tent. He's fallen off his mountain bike and ruptured his femoral artery. Rescuers are doing all they can, but he's lost so much blood he needs specialist care or he hasn't long to live.
We needed to deal with the situation as quickly as we could, stem the flow and get him to hospital as quickly as we could.
An air ambulance is on its way, but it's a tense wait. Consultant anaesthetist Alex James is part of the medical team on board.
From the time of receiving a call, it usually takes us between 3 to 4 minutes to be up in the air and on the way to an incident. Our helicopter travels at roughly 140 miles an hour. We actually got there within 20 minutes.
The waiting mountain rescue team set off a flare to help the pilot find them and capture the air medic's arrival on a head cam.
When we arrived, he was severely unwell. Our main concern was that Shyamenda was drowsy, very pale, very clammy. There were lots of signs all pointing towards him having lost a significant amount of blood.
Shyamenda's only hope of survival is a blood transfusion and surgery on his artery. He needs to get to hospital, so the team give him fluids to stabilise him for the journey, and then prepare to move him to the helicopter. It's a short distance, but it's extremely risky.
What we didn't want to do was to disturb any clot that was already there, so we didn't actually take any of the dressings down because they were already doing a very good job of stopping the bleeding.
It takes 8 members of the highly skilled mountain rescue team to transfer Shyamenda carefully to the aircraft.
I remember everyone sort of picking me up, moving me to the helicopter and getting me on board.
Even at this point, he doesn't realize how close to death he actually is.
I've never been in hospital, and I've never known anyone who's been air rescued, so I didn't associate them arriving with sort of imminent death, if you would.
The team has to move quickly, but gently. Any sudden movement could cause the wound to reopen. Shyamenda is now safely in the air ambulance.
Every minute that he went on with a low blood pressure, with a very fast pulse, and without enough blood volume in him, was a minute that his vital organs weren't receiving enough blood supply, for example, his kidneys. So there was a definite element there that meant we needed to be as quick as possible in getting him to an appropriate centre.
He's rushed to Wythenshawe Hospital near Manchester, leaving his rescuers hopeful that he'll get the immediate specialist care he needs in time.
Wythenshawe Hospital, they call it a trauma centre. It's also quite good because they've got a plastic surgery there. They do micro stitching so they can go into the wound and actually repair the damage and then stitch in layers out from there. So they're well set up for that sort of injury there.
On the helicopter, the doctor is fighting to keep Shyamenda alive.
We were able to try to correct his blood sugar, to give him small volumes of fluid to keep his blood pressure at an adequate level. And we were able to get further IV access in so that when he did arrive at hospital, he had a means of getting blood into him quickly.
After an 8-minute flight, they arrive at the hospital, with Shyamenda's condition continuing to deteriorate rapidly.
At that time, he was critically unwell and he needed treatment in terms of replacing the blood volume that he'd lost, but also in definitively repairing the damage to his artery. The thing that had bought us time to do that and bought the team in the hospital time to provide all of that treatment that he required was the fact that the bleeding had been stopped.
One of the staff, I think she was in blue, sort of saying, you've arrived at Wythenshawe Hospital, and I think at that point I just knock out.
Shyamenda is rushed in for emergency surgery. 5 hours later, he's out of theatre, but he's now so ill that the doctors decide to put him in an induced coma. He has to stay like this for 4 days. When Shyamenda is woken, his world has been turned upside down.
Waking up and learning there's operations to be done, your kidneys are out, and oh, you can't move, and you're a bit swollen as well, and you can't really talk because you can't breathe. It was just like, oh wow, really? Why?
Shyamenda spends another 6.5 weeks in hospital before being well enough to return home. It's now 10 months since the accident, and although he's still not fully recovered, he's making good progress.
Well, I've got some lovely scars, but I'd rather have those than no leg. I'm not able to do all the things I used to be able to do before, but that's getting better.
It's a miracle he made it off the mountain at all.
Having seen him at the scene of the accident and the amount of blood that had been lost, and I think he was very fortunate to be treated by first aiders who had the knowledge and ability to stop that bleeding, because if he hadn't had good control of the bleeding from his groin, then he would have lost so much blood from that injury that he would have had a cardiac arrest and died.
And when the news that Shyamenda has survived reaches the Kinder Mountain Rescue Team, it's just what they all wanted to hear.
Brilliant, you know, because even in our job or in the team, very often we don't get feedback. Severing a femoral artery is quite a close call for anyone, so I think he was very lucky on this occasion.
Shyamenda wanted to thank the team personally for saving his life, so got on his bike and headed back to the Peak District.
The mountain rescue team and the air ambulance guys are just amazing. I owe them everything.
To actually have him come down like that, take the trouble to come from Manchester on his bike, which was another bonus, and it was quite emotional. because he stood in front of us all, and just to hear him recall what he could remember of the day and what had happened to him in hospital and how close he was to passing, really, was just brilliant. It was just a great feeling.
For Shyamenda, it's only now that the true horror of what happened starts to sink in.
Very lucky, because I know, like, if anything went slightly different on that day, then I'm definitely not here today.
Someone who played a huge role in saving Shyamenda's life was the passing walker. That man bought precious time for the rescue team to get there and get to work. No one knows who he is, but Shyamenda has a heartfelt message for him.
I love you. I really, honestly, to stop and help a stranger, that's just really inspiring. You know, just big thank you, and yeah, all the love in the world.
Shyamenda is a very lucky guy. A lot of people came together to help him. So who was that Good Samaritan? If it's you, get in touch. He'd really like to meet you. That's it from Close Calls. Until next time.